ahead and get started if that's okay with y'all. Let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Melissa Essary. This is my husband, Brad Essary. We both have a background in social work. I worked for the Department of Human Services for several years. He also has a Bachelor of Social Work and works in mental health. We have a 10-year-old son named Corbin that's diagnosed with autism and a 7-year-old named Selah, little girl. So I stay at home with the kids now and run after my own kids full time. Brad works still in mental health. Just to tell you guys what an awesome dad he is, after Corbin was diagnosed and we were going through all the process to try to get services for him, ABA is kind of like one of the top services for a kid with autism. He went back and got his master's in psychology with a focus on ABA and is in the process of becoming a board certified behavior analyst. So we have our own personal therapist, so he's a rock star. You guys know how it is. You do everything you can do to try to make life better for your kids. And one of the things that we found that we're going to be talking to you guys about is service dogs. And I also want to point out in the back, that's Charles Dwyer. He's the founder of Retrieving Freedom in Senatobia, Mississippi. That's who trained our service dog, Jet, who is currently under the table with Brad here. I'll bring him out at the end and let you guys take a look at him. I want to explain, Corbin and Selah are here. They're upstairs with my mom. We travel as a pack. I did not bring Corbin downstairs to meet you guys, even though he's friendly and would have liked the attention. He's very jealous of my attention, and he would not have cared for me talking to y'all. So that's why his dog is here without him. So I just wanted to explain that. I think he showed you some pictures of our family, and this is Jet. And that's just a little card that Charles did up for us when we got Jet to pass out as information when we're traveling and such. I'm going to read it to you guys real quick just in case you can't see. Let me read it off of here. Autism, of course you guys know all this part, it's a brain development disorder that impairs social interaction and communication. It causes restricted and repetitive behavior all starting before a child is 3 years old. Autism causes kids to experience the world differently from the way that most other kids do. It's hard for kids with autism to talk with other people and express themselves using words. They may react to what's going around them in unusual ways. Normal sounds may bother someone with autism so much that the person covers his or her ears. Being touched, even in a gentle way, may feel uncomfortable. That totally sums up my Corbin, and I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with that part, but the rest of the world not so much. So we have to explain ourselves a lot, and this helps. If I thought people weren't familiar with autism, they are especially not familiar with service dogs. So this just kind of is a little helpful thing. Service animals are defined as dogs that are individually trained to work or perform tasks for people with disabilities. This is my favorite part of this whole card. My handler's safety rests in my paws. Please don't talk to me, point at me, try to touch me, crouch down, bark at me, or otherwise distract me. If I'm not paying attention to my job, my handler could get hurt. That is totally true. And there's also information for Retrieving Freedom on the bottom, and we have these cards over here if anyone wants one, help yourself. And also when I read that, I thought, who would bark at a service dog? It happens. Like, I was really surprised, but yeah, it does. Wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about, first and foremost, what service dogs cannot do. One, they don't babysit. He is never put in a position where he is solely responsible for Corbin. That seems like it would be a no-brainer. Not long after we got him, I was talking to a fellow autism mom at therapy. She said, I really want one of those dogs so I can just send my kid out in the yard with the dog and let him play, and then I can sit inside and get a little break. I said, let me stop you right there, because that's not at all how that works. You know, you just don't do that. I would not put Jet in a position to where he had to be the adult and be responsible for Corbin, because that's not safe for either of them. Also, he cannot cure autism. Corbin still has autism. He's going to have autism, you know. That's just part of our lives, and we've accepted that. What Jet does do is make it a lot easier in a lot of ways, and that's what we're going to move on and talk about. What service dogs can do. One of the biggest reasons we wanted a service dog, they prevent wandering and bolting. How many of y'all know a kid or have a kid that's a wanderer or a bolter? How scary is that, okay? Like, before we got Jet, I used to load groceries in the back of my van with him pinned up against the bumper and my leg thrown across him, because I was so afraid he would run away out into the parking lot of the grocery store and get hurt. Now that we have Jet, this is what we call a tether. It's just a little hands-free leash. It goes around Corbin's waist and buckles. This clips to the tether. The other end clips to Jet's vest. I have the leash. It's run up on my arm. He's got a 70-pound dog holding him down. He may try to go somewhere, but he's not. I've got the dog's got Corbin, so we're like tag teaming him. So what that enables me to do is pay for groceries, swipe my debit card, run that leash up my arm, and I don't have to worry that he's going to run for me in the grocery store, which he has done before. Mainly because he was mad they asked me debit or credit. He didn't even like me answering that, so that's why he's not here listening to me talk to y'all. But yeah, you know, and you never know when it's going to happen. He'd go for a period of time, and I think, oh, he's past it, and then he'd jet off again. So now we have the jet to help us when that urge strikes. Another thing he aids in calming meltdowns. Corbin loves deep pressure. That is one of the biggest things that will calm him. He will ask us to lay on him or sit on him. And if we're at home, that's fine. We can get him to his bed or whatever and put some pressure on him. But when we're out in public and you sit in your kid's lap, people look at you funny, okay? They do. But if a dog lays on him, it's not, you know, people don't think much about that if they see the dog laying his head over on him or even laying across him. So Jet's really good at that whether we're at home or out. If we see a meltdown come in, and you know, he can either help head it off or he can help recover quicker at the end. So that's been a huge benefit to us. Also, as far as distraction, if we can ever see the meltdown coming, which we don't always, but if we get any advance warning, then we can use Jet to kind of distract him, like, oh hey, why don't you pet Jet? He looks like he needs some love. Let's take him for a walk. I bet it's time to take him for a walk. So it really works out because he loves the dog and it's a good distraction. Like, for example, one Sunday at church, Corbin has finally gotten to the point now where he can go to Sunday school with a helper. We keep the dog with us. Our church has been very good about allowing the dog. Churches are private, so they're not, you know, with the same rules as everyone else, but they've been wonderful about it. So he goes in the service with me and Brad, but he's there in case Corbin needs him. One Sunday, the helper came and got me. She said, he's sitting in class crying, and I don't know why. We don't know how to help him. So I said, let me just come get him. So I opened the door to his classroom. He's sitting there with tears rolling down his face. But he sees me, no, Mama, no. I said, just please come out in the hall and talk to me. No. So I had like this flash of inspiration. I said, look, Jet's in there worried about you. Would you please just come like check on him and let him know you're okay? He goes, oh, Jet's worried about me? And he stands up and says to his class, I gotta go, my dog needs me, and like walks out. I mean, I gave birth to him and he wouldn't come out in the hall for me, but if his dog needs him, he's coming, you know. So it's really great with things like that. It's good. Also helps to build a bridge socially. It gives them something to talk about. If people ask him, you know, what's your dog's name? You know, what do you like to do with him? So it just kind of helps because he is, you know, very awkward socially. So it gives him something, kind of an in into conversations with his friends and things like that. So that's the ways mainly that Jet helps for us. That's the pros of a service dog. These are the cons, and I don't mean to present this in a negative light at all. These are just things that if you're thinking about getting a service dog that I would want you to know. These are the things you need to be prepared for. One, you're going to get increased attention when you're out in public. That is a double-edged sword. It can be that good social interaction that the kids need, and it can also be very overwhelming. I mean, think about a kid with autism. You walk into a store and everyone goes, oh, look, a dog, you know. So it's really rough, you know, for him. And if they all crowd around and want a pet, you know, he doesn't like people in his space. He's very possessive of the dog. So that's when we have to stick to the no petting rule for service dogs. A lot of people don't know that you're not supposed to pet a service dog, especially kids. We get a lot of requests. And I always kind of say it's for their safety because not that I'm worried Jet would do anything, but Corbin, I don't want him to get upset and, you know, lash out. So we do get a lot of increased attention when we're out. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not so much. Can be a little anxiety producing in the kids and the mom. So you also have to be prepared to meet the dog's needs. I mean, we take care of him just like he's another child. I always tell people that's my third child. He's also my well-behaved child. You know, at least he minds. You know, the other one's not so much always. I've been trying to get Charles to take him for a couple of weeks and work with him. He won't do it. I don't know why. But he did a great job with Jet. So I'm very thankful that Jet, you know, it gives me a little boost of self-esteem that at least somebody listens, you know. But we do have to be prepared to take care of him. When you know, as an autism mom, you don't so much graduate diaper bags. They just get bigger and look different. Like you have the iPad and baby wipes and all the stuff you might need. We have a little Clifford bag for Jet that's got his dog treats, his water bowl, bottled water, you know, treats, stuff like that, anytime we go out someplace. So, you know, you do have to be prepared and make plans like that. You don't judge a parking space based on how close it is. You judge it on if it's next to a bush that he could pee on before you go in. You know, that's the kind of things you look for as a service dog mom. You also have to consider the safety of the dog. I'm not going to take Jet in to try to calm down Corbin he's having a really aggressive fit. I don't want the dog to get hurt. You know, he would feel horrible if he hurt him. So that's for both of them. You know, I don't want to put Jet in a bad situation. So I have to think of him, like I said, just like another kid. I want to make sure his needs are met. Access, you know, the American with Disabilities Act, it guarantees, you know, that a service dog can go in any public place that the public is allowed. Most of the time that's not a problem at all. Every now and then we get questions or people that are like, oh, you can't bring pets in here, and you have to try and explain. So that can be a little bit anxiety producing, but like I said, that's a pretty rare thing. We've had him for about 1.5 years, and just a handful of times have we had issues with trying to explain or get in somewhere. So most of the time it's not that bad, but that's always something that's in the back of my mind is, am I going to have trouble getting in this place? What's Corbin going to do if we do? You know, so that's just something to think about. You're in a position where you provide constant education to others, which is a very good position to be in, unless you're having one of those days, you know, and you get stopped a dozen times in the supermarket asking, oh, where'd you get the dog? What's he for? What's he do? How about autism? When was he diagnosed? How'd you know he had it? Where'd you get tested? You know, all that stuff. Sometimes you're like, I just want to get my jug of milk and go, you know, please. So it just kind of depends. It is a very unique position to be in, and 99% of the time, that's excellent. But that 1% when the kid's not having a good day, you know, you have to kind of get in and get out and move on with it. The pros, and that's my favorite part, enhanced safety. That means the world to us. Like I said, if I can go out to the grocery store or just the park or anywhere and know that Jet's going to help me keep Corbin safe, I don't have to worry what's going to happen if I'm distracted for 2 seconds by my daughter or something else, because I have to multitask, you know. So that's just such a boon to me to know that he's going to help me keep Corbin safe. He's a big comfort to Corbin, a reduction in anxiety for him and also for the rest of us, because like I said, we know Corbin's going to be taken care of. We know we can go out places together, and that helps me and Dad to relax, you know, and it helps all of us. So that's a big pro. Just having the freedom to go out in public. We're an active family. We like going out and doing stuff. Even Corbin, you know, he really likes going out places. Now we have to, you know, be careful and be prepared with, you know, noise canceling headphones and all that stuff, but he does like to go out, and he should have that same right that everybody else does to be able to go out in public and be safe. So this allows us to travel as a family and do things as a family, and someone not have to stay home with Corbin because we're worried about what might happen when we get there. He also acts, we say he's Corbin's ambassador. I mean, because Corbin looks just like any other kid. If you just saw him go in a restaurant or somewhere, you wouldn't know that he had special needs until he started maybe, you know, having a meltdown or something, and people don't know what's going on. But if they see us walk in with a dog with a vest on, you know, and he's hooked to Corbin, hopefully that signals to them that our family has a few extra issues going on that they might need to be aware of, and hopefully they offer a little bit extra grace, you know, because that's really important to have. So if they do see unusual behavior, they know we're on top of it, you know, and they know he's dealing with some stuff that's out of his control. So I love that Jet, we say he's Corbin's ambassador, so I like that for him a lot. And I just want to say that the cons I mentioned earlier, the things you have to consider, those pale in comparison to all those pros. I would put up with that kind of anxiety any day if I know that it's going to keep my son from running out in front of cars. So the pros are much outweigh the cons to me, but that's just things I wanted to make everybody aware of. I think we all know that there's a lot of safety issues surrounding autism. I read a study last week on CNN that really just squeezed my heart as a mama. I'd never really given a lot of thought to the life expectancy of people with autism. I just assumed it was generally the same as the rest of the public. I mean, we're not looking at, like, you know, our friends that have Down syndrome, like we have some friends, their kids have heart defects and things like that, and they go through a lot. And I know that that can shorten their lifespan, but you don't typically see the heart defects and things like that so much with kids with autism, so I just assumed they had a normal life expectancy. They don't. The study that came out recently shows that they're 40% more likely to die in an accident than the general population, and their life expectancy is 36. Y'all, I'm 35 right now, my husband's 37. Think about what that did to me as a mom, thinking this might be all our kids are expected to get right in the middle of the ages we are now. That just sent chills through me. And the thing is, it's preventable accidents. And it's not, when I say preventable, I don't mean that the parents are neglecting them. I mean these kids are like Houdini. You guys know this. They can run off in a second. They're attracted to water. The biggest risks were suffocation, asphyxiation, and drowning. And they can be off in a minute, and you know, it's not that the parents aren't paying attention, it's just that you can't be everywhere at once sometimes. So that's why having Jet is so important to me. It's just an extra layer of security, just like we have the chain locks on our doors and things like that. We don't depend on just one thing, but he's a huge added layer of protection over our family, and I'm beyond grateful for that. Just wanted to point out too that for the general population, the life expectancy is 72, so it's half that for a person with autism. And that just, like I said, that really, you know, bothered me. I thought, you know, that just spurs me on to do everything I can do, you know, to keep my family safe, to keep us together. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what service animals do as defined by the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act. A service animal means any dog that is individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of an individual with a disability. That includes physical disability, sensory, psychiatric, intellectual, other mental disabilities. It's a broad range. Mostly people are familiar with seeing eye dogs, and they know what those are. But you know, really, it's kind of branched out. Autism service dogs are just something I kind of started hearing about like within the past several years. But yeah, it's a thing, and a lot of people don't realize that. Another thing, sensory signal dogs is a dog trained to assist a person with autism, and the dog can alert the handler to distracting repetitive movements common among those with autism, allowing the person to stop the movement. Like if it was a stem that was harmful or something like that, dogs can be trained to break that. One thing we're still working on with Jet, and it's one of those things that he just has to be with Corbin to kind of learn, but we have learned, and this was not anything we were expecting, that he can sense mood changes in Corbin before we can. And like I said, we weren't prepared for that. I wasn't expecting that. Last summer, Corbin was having a really, really tough time. And he can be aggressive at times, like I said. I thought he was in a perfectly good mood. He had been over Brad's parents' house. Jet was there with them. I went to pick him up. Brad's mom said he did great. We've had the best time. Well, I sat and talked to her for a minute, and Jet starts pacing back and forth and like whining, and he kept coming to me and whining. I actually got up and went outside because I thought it was about to storm. Because I was like, you know, he gets a little antsy with storms sometimes when we're home. And like it was perfectly clear outside, so I was like, what's wrong? And like I couldn't get him settled down, and I didn't know. Well, we left right after that. When I was buckling Corbin in his car seat, he just hauls off and hits me hard enough to black my eye. I walked around with the black eye. Jet was trying to tell me that was coming, and I didn't get it. So now I pay a little more attention if he starts acting antsy around Corbin. Then I need to start like mobilizing the troops and calming things down, because he can sense it, like I said before, we can. So we're working on him kind of being able to alert us to that. We try to reward him and, you know, let him know he's doing a great job when he does it. But it's just me being smart enough to pick up on it. Because like I said, that first day I had no idea what was wrong. I was like, dude, you know, he never acts like that. What's wrong? And he was trying to tell me, but I figured out when I got the black eye. I was like, oh, that, you know. But so I think that's pretty cool how they can pick up on things like that. Under Title II and III of the ADA, service animals are limited to dogs. However, entities must make reasonable modifications in policies to allow individuals with disabilities to use a miniature horse. That's the only other animal besides dogs, and I did not know that, but it's a miniature horse. Now, I've never seen a working miniature horse, but it's a thing. So I think that's really interesting. But all other animals are not allowed to be service animals. I mean, 99% of the time around here, I would say, if it's going to be a working dog, you know. So if you see a dog out in public someplace you wouldn't normally see, just automatically assume that it's working. This is a big one to me, the difference between emotional support animals and service animals. Emotional support animals, they're sometimes called comfort animals, and also therapy dogs, like in a facility. Those are not service animals under the ADA, and they are not granted the public access right that a trained service dog would be. Now, those are generally dogs that have very good temperaments, or any kind of animal with a good temperament that's comforting to a person that has some type of disability. They are allowed sometimes to fly on planes, and they might be allowed to stay in housing where they don't normally allow pets, but they're not allowed, like, say, in hotels, restaurants, movie theaters, general public like that. I hear a lot of horror stories about stuff like that, and honestly, it really upsets me because it damages our credibility as a legit service animal. My aunt told me not long ago, she lives in Huntsville, she was in a buffet and a woman came in with a chicken under her arm. That's her service animal. She's bringing the chicken to the buffet. Okay, that's not okay. And I'm sure it put whoever, you know, when she's insisting that it's a service animal and she has to be let in, whoever's in charge of that restaurant, the next time if I'll go in, you know, they're like, oh, here comes another animal, you know. And I'm like, no, for real, he's trained, you know, he's not a chicken. So it hurts us when people try to pass a pet off as a service animal. And I get that any type of animal can be comforting to somebody. I mean, my daughter has a guinea pig she absolutely loves. She knows that Jet goes everywhere with Corbin. She was sick one time and needed to go to the doctor, and she's crying, "Can I bring Willow with me to the doctor to make me feel better like Jet helps Corbin?" Nope, because your guinea pig's not trained to do tasks, sorry. So if I can tell my 7-year-old that, I think that the woman with the chicken should have to abide by those rules too. We have another family that works in retail in a store. They had an issue. A customer actually called the police because another customer's service monkey jumped on them. Like jumped onto their shoulder while they were shopping. And it was a huge deal. Now, if that had happened to me, they would have been calling the police on me because I'd be like, oh, the monkey's chosen me, it's mine, it's going home with me. My daughter doesn't have one of those in her collection, but the person that, unexpectedly had a monkey jump on them, they actually called the police. They were very upset. So things like that damages actual service dog families that have worked really hard to get to where they're at, and it's hard. So, just a little bit of education about that. Where are service dogs allowed? In any public location or facility. If the public is allowed to go there, then a service dog is allowed to go there. They're not allowed to charge extra fees or anything like that. Like I said, one exception would be a church, because that's not considered it's more or less a private facility. Our church has been excellent about it. I mean, they knew we were getting Jet, and they've been so good. They're very welcoming. Under what conditions are they allowed? When they're performing a service for an individual with a disability. That's what sets a service dog aside from just a general pet. They're actually trained to do a task. In Jet's case, he's trained to prevent wandering and bolting. He's trained to lay on Corbin and give him deep pressure when he's having a meltdown. So we know he's worked really hard to learn those tasks. So 2 questions can be asked. Like if we're going in a restaurant and they're not sure if they should let us in or not, they can ask, is this animal required because of a disability? Or most people just say, is this a service dog? And I say, no, I found that vest in the parking lot, thought he looked good in it. I'm just kidding, I don't say that. I say, yes, he's a service dog. And then I point to the vest, And they can also ask, what work or task has the dog been trained to perform? We've actually never been asked that question, not by anybody determining if they should let us into their place or whatever. Now, we get asked by just regular people because they're interested, But they can ask, what has he been trained to perform? Like I said, I would tell them about the wandering and bolting and about the meltdowns and things like that. And then they would let us go on our way. But that's the only 2 questions they're allowed to ask. They cannot ask what your disability is because that's just kind of rude. That's private. They can't ask what the disability is. They can't ask for documentation or proof. A lot of people think we have some sort of driver's license or something for the dog. Now, we do have stuff like that, but the fact is most anybody could get one of those for $50 off the internet for their chicken or monkey or whatever. I could order a piece of paper off the internet that said I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but that wouldn't be true, So there is no set form of document that you have to present every time that you go out. Like I said, a lot of people think that there is, but there's not. You can't ask them to have the dog demonstrate the task. They can't ask me, oh, well, have your son try to run off and the dog stop him, or and they don't want to see a meltdown. They're not going to ask me about that, I don't think. But no one's ever tried. No one's asked us that. And like I said, they can't ask what the specific disability is, because that's private information. They don't need to be asking that. A little bit about our story. Now, we researched service dogs for years before finally making the decision to pursue getting one. Now, Corbin, he's almost 11 now. He was diagnosed officially when he was 3, but we knew from about 18 months, and we're just trying to get him in somewhere to get the official diagnosis. So it was no great surprise. And we started looking into service dogs, but the thing was, most places were really far from us, and we knew we'd have to pick up our whole family and travel, back and forth for training. And it was cost prohibitive, which, you do fundraisers and stuff, but most of the places we looked at cost upwards of $25,000, which is how much it takes to train a service animal. But that seemed like a really daunting amount of money for us to have to raise. We live in a small town. We're certainly not rich, so it seemed very daunting. We would talk about how we needed one, and then we would get scared with all the what ifs, so we would back off of it for a while. One day, Corbin's ABA therapist was sitting at my house, and I was telling her, he was 7 at the time. I said, I just really wish he had a pet. At the time, we didn't have any pets. And I said, I just wish he had a pet. I think that would be good for him. He loves animals. I think that would be a good step. And she said, well, why don't you just move forward and actually get him a service dog? She said, I really think he could benefit from it, especially with some of the behaviors he has. why don't you just go on and do that? And I said, well, you know, we've looked at it, and it's just everything's so far away, and it's just too much. I just can't consider it right now. She was like, Melissa, you know there's a guy in Senatobia 2 hours from your house that trains, right? And I was like, what? No. But her husband had worked with hunting dogs and had heard of Charles through that, and she put us in touch with them, and we actually went and met him on Corbin's 8th birthday, and that was when we put in our official application and got approved to begin the process of getting a service dog. Now, another thing, in addition to it being so much closer to us, because I could drive 2 hours back and forth through training, you know, I was more than willing to do that. He only asked us to raise $5,800, which I tell people that, and they're like, wow, that's a lot of money. I mean, it is. We certainly, it wasn't like we flipped our couch cushions up and dug the change out and we were ready to go, you know. But we had a lot of support. We had a lot of community support from our family. Charles helped us, put us in contact with organizations that help us fundraise. It actually went a lot smoother than I thought it would. So it's definitely doable if your family was interested in that. It's definitely something that's possible. We were very impressed with his training facility, with the dogs. He was very positive with his dogs. Like, I have seen people, not people that train service dogs, but just people that train dogs in general, and their dogs kind of like cowed down in front of them like they were scared, and it just like hurt my heart to see it. His dogs love him. I mean, they perform their tasks because they want to please him. Jet has not seen him in about 6 months until he got here today, and he was so happy to see him. So that always makes me happy to know that they're coming from a positive environment and that they're really getting a lot of good training. And also, like, you don't go in and like pick out, oh, I want that dog, or he says, look, I'm going to give you this one. His policy was kind of let the boy and the dog choose each other, or the person and the dog choose each other. So we met several dogs before we got paired with the Jet. This is a couple. That's Diesel. He's a golden doodle. He's living with a little boy in Atlanta right now that has autism. He's a great dog. I loved Diesel and all his hairy fur. Corbin did not like the way he felt. The little boy that has Diesel now does not like the way the labs feel, the sleek labs. So it's really, his mom and I have laughed about that. On the other side, that's Bruno. He's a yellow lab that Corbin met and liked a whole lot, but just kind of didn't jive so much to say. Like, when we met Jet, you know, Charles had told me about him and that he thought, you know, Jet had a good personality for Corbin and that they might work good together. When we walked in and he had Jet sitting there, Corbin walked up to him and said, you're going to be my dog. So, I mean, that was just it, you know, so we knew. Yeah, this is Diesel. He came. I'm going to explain now. A lot of the pictures you see of Corbin with a dog, he's in a hospital bed. Since having autism wasn't enough, he also has primary immune deficiency. His immune system doesn't produce antibodies and stuff like it should, and he stayed sick all the time when he was younger. So we go 3 hours to Birmingham once a month to get treatment that keeps him healthy, puts back in his system what he's not getting. It's made from blood products, and they were giving it at the time by IV infusions. So imagine how much fun it is. We started when he was 5, going every month 3 hours from your house one way to hold your child down with autism to get an IV. It was not fun. It was not fun at all. So it became a lot easier when we had Jet. Like, his nurses were elated because he would hop right up in the bed with them, lay across his lap. He used to tell me every month, please don't sit on me. So he only wants me to sit on him when he asks for it, not when I'm going to hold him down to get an IV. So it was a lot better for him to have the dog with him than us. You know, so like I said, you'll see some more pictures later on. I just wanted to explain that. And on the other side, that's a service dog named Presley. She had gone to an event with Charles, and we were there. Now, she's with a little girl, but that was just a cute picture they made with her. Seela was pouting because we didn't get to take her home. She likes golden retrievers a lot, so she's mad. But yeah, we met several dogs, and I enjoyed that whole process. You know, we were so excited to see which one would be Corbin's. You know, and like I said, he kind of picked Jet his own self, and Jet didn't have any arguments with it. So they met, and they were paired over the summer, and we worked several months. Just, you know, we would meet Charles and like go through Walmart and walk around, just different things like that, to work on public access and work the two together. He came to live with us in October of 2015, am I right? So 2015, so we've had him for about 1.5 years. And he really has changed our lives. I mean, it legitimately has. One of the first things that we were just blown away by, the second night we had him, he slept in Corbin's bed with him. That was the first night Corbin's ever slept in his own bed, and the first time he had slept through the night without like getting up for us. That is huge for an autism family. Like, I know y'all know, but we just couldn't believe it. He had always slept with us. I mean, he was a big kid. He couldn't sleep without somebody being right beside him. You know, he's throwing elbows, throwing knees, and all that stuff. Y'all know how it is. And for him to sleep through the night, I mean, normally he was getting up several times, and we were like constantly sleep deprived. So from the second night when we took Corbin into his room and said, you know, we don't think Jet wants to sleep in his crate tonight. Could he sleep with you in your bed? And he was like, yeah, you know, come on. We didn't really think it would happen. Well, it did. He jumped right up there with him, and they've been there ever since. I will say, and I've said this before to Charles, if I'd known that first time we met him when Corbin was 8 years old, if he had told me, there's a 100% guarantee when you take this dog home that Corbin will sleep at night and sleep in his own bed without being between you and your daddy and keeping you up all night, I would have beaten him up and stolen a dog that day. I would have been like, no, we're leaving with one. I'm not waiting. You know, I mean, you know how it is, just getting sleep. Oh, my goodness. So that's been a very good thing for us, you know, to be able to have rest and function a little bit better, because I'm goofy enough, you know, when I'm not sleep deprived, but when I'm not getting sleep, things are really bad. So that's one of the huge things that we noticed right away, and we were really shocked by that. Like, I didn't expect that, but we were really glad to get it. This is one of the days that Charles brought Jet to our house, and Corbin's given him a kiss, which is also a big deal because he's not overly demonstrative with affection. He is to our family, but like for new people, you know, he's not always real. So for him to give him a kiss, that was really exciting, and he was loving on him. This is Jet's vest. Like, we're at a service dog graduation. Like, they have actual graduation ceremonies for him. It's really awesome. This is not the one Jet graduated at, but he's got his alumni bandana on that another RFI recipient made for him. And that's his from his actual graduation, his certificate of graduation, and his vest, you know, with the puzzle pieces for autism, and it says service dog, you know, do not pet. Like I always tell kids when I'm explaining to them about Jet, I'm like, he went to dog school for a couple of years. They're like, wow, you know. But yeah, he's worked really hard to get where he is. But yeah, just some of the ways he's changed our life. Like I said, the sleeping and the tethering to prevent bolting, you know, that's huge. Like I said, I'm so much more relaxed, being able to go out places, a lot more confident in our ability to keep Corbin safe. This is in his room at home. The big blue thing is a crash pad. Are y'all familiar with those? Does anybody know? That is money well spent. Like, we used tax return to buy a crash pad one year, and like, we love it. That's his meltdown spot if we're at home and we can get him to that crash pad. That saves stuff from getting broken. That saves him from getting bruises from banging his head on the floor. So we love the crash pad. So if we can get him to that and get Jet to lay with him, that's how we see the meltdown at home. It's a little more complicated when we're out in public, but that's our meltdown spot at home. And these pictures are taken different times. You can see his clothes are different, but there he is. You can tell by his eyes, and that first one on the right, that he just doesn't feel good. And Jet's laying with him, and he's snuggled up to him. And then in the other one on the left, Jet's laying across his legs. So he'll tell us sometimes if he's calm enough to where he wants him to lay. Sometimes it's, you know, his arm or his back, or that time he wanted him to lay across his legs, and Jet will do it. We tell him to snuggle, and we help guide him into position a lot of times, and he'll lay with them. I like the one on the left because it's like they're holding hands. He's got Jet's paw. So yeah, he's a big comfort to him. And the one on the right, you notice Corbin's foot's on him. When we're out together, when we go out places, he has to be touching Jet. If we go in a restaurant, Jet lays under the table, his feet have to be on him so that he can feel him. And I really think it helps him stay grounded. You know, with all his sensory issues, he has a hard time, and I think that just kind of helps him feel a little bit more stable. So we have to make sure that Jet is laying where Corbin can put his feet on him. And the funny part is, a lot of places that we go on a regular basis, Jet is very used to, and like, I don't even have to like give commands so much anymore. Like, we went to a restaurant a couple weeks ago because Corbin loves to eat. I mean, he didn't used to, but he does now. He's making up for it. For all those years, he only ate like 3 foods. But yeah, so now we eat. And we go in the restaurant, and we walked up to the table, and I opened my mouth to tell him kennel to go under the table. And before I could say it, he went right underneath it and laid down. And I was like, thank you, my one well-behaved child. I love you so much, you know. But yeah, and like, we go to the movie every month. We go to sensory-friendly movies. My husband founded an organization called Reconnect for Autism in our hometown to provide like family-friendly stuff for families dealing with autism. So we have a sensory movie every month, and Jet knows the movies. Like, he's not freaked out at all by any of it. Like, we go in, he lays down, and he's like assumed foot prop position, you know, and Corbin's little feet go up on his back, and that's how they set the whole movie. So it's just a good source of comfort for him. Like I said, we do get asked a lot of questions when we're out in public. Some of it's funny, you know, but some of it's serious too. But one of the main questions we get asked is, does it bite? No, my standard answer is he doesn't, but his boy does. So, be careful. And he literally does. He'll bite his arm when he gets upset. He'll bite me. If you stand close enough, he might bite you. So, I try to not explain all that. But no, Jet, he's not. He has an excellent temperament. He's one of the most gentle dogs I know. My daughter will get her guinea pig out and lay it down next to him on his bed, and he just snuggles her. I mean, he's very, very laid back. Another thing they ask, and we do a lot of time in waiting rooms at therapy, and I don't send Jet back with Corbin because even though he's Corbin's dog, Brad and I are the handlers. Corbin is not in a position where he's able to assume responsibility for the dog and give commands and take control of him. And what we would have to do is like get all his therapists trained, and like we see so many. So usually, like I said, it's the same with church. I keep him in the waiting room with me. If there's a problem, Corbin and I go to Jet. So he's there if he's needed, but Mom has control of him. So a lot of times, like, he's just laying at my feet, and people are like, oh, well, can I pat him? And I'm like, no, he's working or whatever. And they're like, he's laying down. What do you mean he's working? Well, how many dogs do you know that could lay in a public place with people coming and going, and they're just laying there not getting up, they're calm, He's trained to do this. I know it may not look like much, but that's huge. I mean, most animals are all over the place. So for him to be able to wait an hour to 2 hours in a waiting room and just lay there, I mean, he is working, trust me, so let's not bother him, that's the thing. I get from little kids a lot when I tell them that he's a trained dog, can he do tricks? Well, he's not a circus dog, he's a service dog, So I explained to him about what kind of work he does, he's not gonna like do backflips or anything, but he does some really cool stuff for his boys. So that's how I explain that to them. People ask a lot, well, does he ever just get to be a dog? Do you play with him? Does he get to relax? No, we take him home, just put him in a corner. Of course he does, honestly, I mean, he's living the good life. He really is, because we're all crazy about him. I mean, he eats well, he rests well, he's so much love. He's hardly ever by himself, which is pretty much a dog's dream if you think about it, because they like being with their people. So yeah, Jet's living the good life, and when he's home, he's free to play, and we have a fence in our yard. We got and throw tennis balls. He follows the kids around and falls over on his back with all fours up, like asking for belly rubs. Like Celia gives the best belly rubs. He'll like stalk her for belly rubs at home, and that's his favorite thing. So he gets plenty of time to relax. We're definitely not wanting to push him, but he has a purpose. He likes to work. Actually, he will pout if we stay home for several days and don't go anywhere. Like if I leave the house and Brad and the kids stay home, he follows me to the door and sits and looks like, I want to go, So when we get that vest out, he gets excited. He knows he's going to go somewhere. He knows he's got something to do. That's what he trained to do. That's what he lives for. So he's happy being a working dog, I think. And Brad always says, and I love this analogy, he says without the vest on, he's like Clark Kent. He's just chilling. But you put the vest on, he's Superman. He knows what he has to do, and he's prepared to do it. So does he get to go to school with Corbin? A lot of people ask that. The school is fine with him going. It's in his IEP, but he doesn't go to school with him, and the reason why is Corbin has so much anxiety. He's on a very abbreviated school day. He goes for about an hour and a half to 2 hours in the morning. He's very attached to a special education teacher. She sees him, and he has a whole host of therapists that come in and work with him. And then I go pick him up, I bring him home, we work together in the afternoons. I have homeschool curriculum, I homeschool my daughter. So we work together in the afternoons, and we do therapy on our own. So just the way our schedule is broken up, he's not at school for very long. And the reason, we talked about it at the beginning of this year about him going, like I said, they would have to be trained to be handlers, which his teacher's more than willing to do. But she has 2 assistants, so they would need to be trained as well if she needed to step out of the class or she wasn't there. 5 therapists that come to see him. So you're looking at Charles having to come and train 8 people for an hour and a half, 2 hours every day. I felt like that was kind of a lot to ask, and I knew they were all willing to do it, but I just, thought, well, is it worth it, And another thing, the main thing that kind of killed it for me is, Corbin's in a room full of precious, precious special needs kids, but explaining to them that they can't pet that dog, and I would be okay with it if Corbin wasn't so possessive, but I was just afraid it would cause more trouble. So the answer is no, he doesn't go to school, but it's not because Jet has a problem with it. It's not because the school's been ugly to us about it, because they've been wonderful. It's not because Charles didn't support us. We have everything in place. I just didn't ask that, we go through all that for 2 hours a day. So he stays home, and Corbin's always excited to see him when he comes in. He's like, Jet, I'm home, and the dog comes and loves on him, and so that's good. But yeah, he just gets a break while Corbin's at school. This is a quote I love. A friend of mine that I met at this conference several years ago, Carrie Magro, He says, autism can't define me, I define autism. I think that's true for Corbin. I mean, he's a great little kid. He's been thrown a ton of challenges, but he's worked really hard. And as hard as we've worked as parents, I mean, he's worked harder. And no matter how many struggles we think we have, he has more. I mean, he's had to endure so much more than we have. So I'm really proud of how far he's come, and I'm really thankful that he's got such a good buddy to help him. The one on the right, that's taken in the elevator at Children's of Alabama. The little black bag around his neck, we're actually doing a subcutaneous infusion now. He gets little spots in his belly, and that's how his medicine goes in. So he can move around and stuff like that. So we were taking a little tour of the hospital with his favorite nurse, and Jet went with us, and everybody really likes seeing him. But so we actually get to we do those treatments weekly, and we do 3 at home. You know, we do 3 weeks at home and then 1 week in Alabama. And Jet will lay with him in our bed at home and, you know, help him out, which it's not really painful, so he doesn't have nearly as much stress with that. But the point is, we do a lot of doctor's appointments. I mean, some for the autism-related issues and a lot for his health issues on top of that. So he spent a lot of time in hospitals. That was when we first got Jet. He still got the training vest on. I think that one is at the geneticist office in Jackson. We're all over the place with doctors. And I like the one of Jet laying on Corbin's feet, and that just kind of helps him stay calm and not be so wiggly. That was when he was still getting IVs, the one on the right, and again, you see him with his feet on Jet. The one on the left, he was saying a prayer before he had to go to the doctor. He's very precious about that, so he was saying a little prayer. These are on the way home. The one on the right, he was celebrating, and Jet's giving him sugar. It looks like he's holding money, so I guess they were really happy about that. The one on the left, we're at the service dog graduation in Senatobia, and Corbin started getting a little bit antsy, and Jet got up and stood in his lap, like put his feet on him, and was helping him back down a little bit with his anxiety. So these are at the Children's Museum in Jackson, Mississippi. Really funny story. They went to play the checkers, and you see the one on the right, Corbin just looks bored to death, and Jet's, you know, pretty happy or whatever, because Corbin doesn't like traditional checkers, but he likes stacking them. That made him really happy. So Jet's like laying down, and he's like, oh, he's good, you know, he's happy, and he blew him over, you know, that not typical play, but it sure makes him happy, so we go with that. A quote from Temple Grandin, we love her as well. You have got to keep autistic children engaged in the world. You cannot let them tune out. And Jet's one thing that's kept Corbin from tuning out with us so much. He helps him stay present, he helps him stay engaged, and he's just really been a blessing to our family. He really has. This is, like I said, we do try to get out and do a lot of things. These are at, I think that's a basketball game at Ole Miss, and he's got on his noise canceling headphones, and Jet's sitting with him and stuff. So, the one on the right, I had my friend make him a shirt. It says, keep your paws off my service dog, because, you know, and that kind of helps out. Because like I said, we don't mean to be mean with not letting people pet, but it is overwhelming for Corbin, and it's a distraction for the dog. Charles also trains dogs for people with type 1 diabetes and veterans with maybe PTSD or injuries. So, you know, you think about it, and I mean, we all love dogs, but I don't want to be the reason that somebody with type 1 diabetes misses getting alerted to a low because I was playing with their dog. You know, and I don't want to cause anxiety to a veteran with PTSD because I ran up and, you know, was like in his face asking him questions. So there's definitely a right way to approach somebody. I mean, we love it, you know, when people are like, oh, that's a great dog, you know, things like that. But it can be really overwhelming if a whole group of people kind of, you know, bombard you at once. So that's why we don't generally allow people to pet him. You know, like I said, it's just with Corbin, I don't want him getting upset and things like that. We appreciate y'all listening. We just like to be able to kind of explain what he's done for our life. And like I said, we're so proud of him. So we appreciate y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate y'all listening.